Hello, this is a discourse on the book Christ in You with references to A Course in Miracles, the Holy Bible, and the near-death experience. And today we'll be studying 20th lesson in part 1 called Growth, Real and Unreal. My name is Angel Christchild, and I'm joined today by my friend. Welcome, friend.
Welcome.
Welcome, listeners.
We'll continue on here then with the 20th lesson about growth, real and unreal.
Yes, and that can be found on page 82 of your book. Okay.
Yeah. So it says, there is an atmosphere of rest and peace and much deep joy. An atmosphere of love is the one we can most easily enter. Everything is possible to the truly loving disciple. Love to God and man fulfills every law. There's an interesting, good little Bible verse here around the word fulfills, when it says fulfills every law.
Yes.
Psalms 25:9. He guides the humble. Oh, sorry, wrong page. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law.
Very good.
Love is the key of all knowledge, wisdom, and power. Dwell deep in this love, and you will see as God sees.
So there's a nice little verse from A Course in Miracles about the dwells deep in love, and you will see as God sees. So it says, love is not little, and love dwells in you, for you are the host to him, the capital H. Before the greatness that lives in you, your poor appreciation of yourself and all the little offerings you give slip into nothingness. So I think this is, oh, by the way, this is from the text, a section called Littleness versus Magnitude. So right here, they're pointing out that we're hosting God's love and that the greatness that lives in us is the magnitude, and the littleness of our ego is the nothingness. So I thought that was pretty encouraging.
Yeah.
That, you know, in this book, they call that the shadow self. And in A Course in Miracles, they call it the ego.
To get to the truth of what's real and what's unreal.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's nice to think that love dwells in us and we are hosting God. So shall we go on?
It says, continuing, it says, yet even this expression of God is imitated by the false or shadow self of the senses.
Mm-hmm.
We will learn to discriminate between inflation, expansion, and real growth from the center. Every good is closely imitated in the shadow world. Growth often means a great lack, a sense of poverty. It is never fulsome nor aggressiveness. The meek will he guide in judgment. The meek will he teach. Learn the greatness of humility.
So there's another verse I'd like to share at this time from A Course in Miracles on the meek he will guide in judgment, the meek he will teach. And it says, spirit is beyond humiliation because it recognizes its radiance and gladly sheds light everywhere. The meek shall inherit the earth because their egos are humble, and this gives them truer perception. And that's from the text, a section called Right Teaching and Right Learning. So I think there's a lot of people out there who could benefit from this understanding.
Yeah, it's like in the Bible says like what the Bible passages he refers to are saying essentially that's the same thing, that regarding the meek will he teach. Psalms says that he guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. And then learn the greatness of humility has a reference to Psalms 149:4. For the Lord takes delight in his people. He crowns the humble with victory.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes it doesn't seem that way on this earth when the rich and the people who are less than humble seem to be in control. However, this is a fallen world guided by the shadow self, and what we see on the outer is an illusion. And we'd all be well to keep that in mind. When we look out with our eyes, we see illusions.
So he also says, Bible verse Matthew 5:5, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth.
Yes, that's a very well-known verse, which is misused, as all Bible verses can be misused. Okay.
And so then continuing, the little child is all unconscious of its lowliness, its growth. So also must the soul be when really emerging, free from the unreal, the outer, and the false self of the senses.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, during the very beginning of A Course in Miracles, the workbook lessons, we find lessons that show us that we don't know what this world is for. So basically, what it's saying is we don't know what we're doing. We don't know why we're here. We don't know what is the world for. And basically, that's what we're learning through the lessons. So we don't know what we're doing or thinking. And that's what the Course in Miracles teaches us through the lessons, that we don't know and we must be as little children. So that's very, concurrent with the Christ in you.
And there's another good verse here. It says, Matthew 18:4, therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Continuing on here, it says, the little child is all unconscious of its lowliness, its growth. So also must the soul be when really emerging, free from the unreal, the outer and false self of the senses. Love seeketh not her own. It shall be nothing to you that others seem to manifest more of God. You and they may be at different stages of unfoldment. Be content to know that God is in the midst, and learn the secret of dwelling in friendly darkness, that your roots may grow deep down. For during the time of hiddenness, a great work is going on.
I just wanted to point out back up a little bit, and just talk to you about love seeketh not her own. And, I see that there's quotes there, but no Bible reference. And, basically, I thought that quote meant that love goes out and seeks for people who are unloving. What do you think? I mean, it's kind of set out there, and then it goes on to something different. So I wasn't sure what the context was there.
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe in the context of the paragraph, it's like, don't like judge yourself and how like better you are than others because you're like greater than them in like your spiritual journey, or you're
Mhm.
like don't like get the ego involved in it all.
Right. Right. Well, I actually did look it up while I was speaking, and it's from Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13:5. And basically, they're talking about not being selfish, not self-seeking, um, one's own interests, that kind of thing. So yeah, you were right. Sounds good.
There's another good little verse here for when it says, for during the time of hiddenness, a great work is going on around. Hiddenness is reference for is 1 Corinthians 4:5.
Yes.
Therefore judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. At each time, or at that time, each will receive their praise from God.
Right. Very good.
So continuing on, then the soul that seeks nourishment from the true self becomes strong. Learn from the parable of the house built on the sand, and let nothing hinder this deep work of the soul. So that was a Bible verse to, it would be a practice of foolishness to build a house on sand because it would be not on a stable foundation.
There's no foundation for it. So, and also from the course, I found a couple of interesting quotes.
Mhm.
The true self becoming strong. Now must the Holy Spirit find a way to help you see the concept of the self must be undone. That's the little s self or the ego self. If any peace of mind is to be given to you, and that comes from self-concept versus self. It's a text, part of the text. And then for the true foundation, well, that's actually on page 83, but 84, I mean, but I'll just go ahead and wait for you to get to that then. All righty. So we have to undo the ego self to find peace of mind.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that. Yeah.
And there's another little verse here that said, when the man built the house on sand, the rain then came down, the streams rose, the windows blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying, yeah, even though he likes to use those analogies of like growing your roots down in the soil,
Mm-hmm.
and the seed is growing, but it's in
Mm-hmm.
darkness, but it is
Right.
growing.
Yeah.
And he likes to use that analogy from nature. Then it's going to grow and it's going to be a wonderful tree or a wonderful plant or whatever.
Yeah, he likes to root things in the earth, so to speak.
Yeah. So continuing on, it says, know that all is well, although no result is seen.
That's one of the hardest things. You have to keep believing, although no result is seen.
That's how the universe knows that you changed.
Mm-hmm. even if you can't see it with your eyes, because we live in an illusion. So even things we see with our eyes may not make sense because it's illusionary. That's why I think probably we may not see the results, because the results are in the spirit world, not so much here.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting idea, like maybe in other realms that we are not aware of or don't see with our physical eyes, because our physical eyes are just watching this illusion kind of play out.
Yes.
They're very focused in a specific time, but there's so much more happening across, like, timeless.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Well, it says, seek the silence, love all men, bless all. Thus do you make right conditions for growth. Unknown to you, there are outer conditions arranging themselves in harmony with the hidden work, and your whole future depends upon the true foundation being cleared of false building matter, wrong thinking, and wrong actions. Self-aggrandizement, not true material.
Yeah. This is very, very important. And I've got something here from A Course in Miracles. It says, the true foundation is being cleared of, oh, sorry, that's what we just read. The true foundation is being cleared of faults, etc. So from the Course it says, the branch that bears no fruit will be cut off and will wither away. Be glad. The light will shine from the true foundation of life, and your own thought system will stand corrected. Because, it's all in our mind. The shadow self, this illusion, it's all in our mind. And what we need is a correction for it. And that's what this book, and that's what A Course in Miracles and near-death experience seek to give us, correction in our minds.
There's no other foundation. So back to the foundation idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other foundation than the Christ of God, the true self. That which is unreal must sooner or later be swept into nothingness. You are just where you are in order to do this work. Spirit is the only true substance, and our lessons will teach you how to build. God cannot fail if you are alive to Christ within and dead to all else.
So that's also a important concept in A Course in Miracles, which would be, if you're alive to Christ within, that means that you're referencing and being guided and following Christ within, and not placing importance on this illusion unless you're being guided by Christ to do something within it, which is the story of my life. So this quote from A Course in Miracles says, let this one be the day that you succeed. Look deep within you, undismayed by all the little thoughts and foolish goals you pass as you ascend to meet Christ in you. And that's from the workbook lessons called My Part is Essential to God's Plan for Salvation. So you just let these little illusions and foolish goals pass you by as you ascend within to Christ.
There's a pretty powerful verse here, reference around the word alive to Romans 6:2.
Yes.
And this can be taken multiple different ways, but I think we'll find that we know the right way to take it from the book here. So it says, by no means, exclamation, we are those who have died to sin. How can we live in it any longer?
Mm,
And I think the sin is referring to like that false idea of separation or not
yeah,
believing that Christ is within us.
I agree. Yes, that's right. Those are some of the false ideas that we have.
So continuing, it says, you may know the unreal by its self-seeking, by the desire for adulation, praise, and self-glory.
Hmm.
And then in the very last sentence here in quotes, be not deceived, God is not mocked.
And that's also a Bible verse, I believe.
Yes, Galatians 6:7.
Hmm.
Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows.
Interesting. God cannot be mocked because God knows not a mocking. There's no mocking in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's saying that the person who may be getting caught up in like their ego or self-seeking behaviors, that person is trying to like aggrandize themselves
Hmm.
and trying to like trying to be like God, but not in a godlike way, right? Not through
Yeah.
being humble and sitting in silence and loving
Right.
men. He is doing it to serve his ego and trying to like compete with God and say, well, my ego is the great thing, and that is my God, or essentially, right? So
Hmm.
the last verse is saying, oh, that's that's just really silly to God. God
It
is
is.
so great and powerful and would never do something like that. So
Well, and sometimes you wonder whether people who make that choice will ever meet God in person because God is a choice we have to make, you know, because we have ultimate free will here. And if we don't choose to be with God, we're probably not going to see God.
yeah, it's interesting that those types of people can get off on a tangent and go down a path, a
Uh-huh.
long, winding path, but we can know that all paths, no matter how long and winding, should do lead
Yes.
back to them understanding. At some point, they'll come to this realization.
Yes, that's what the Course in Miracles teaches as well, that it's a more direct path to God, but it also teaches that there's many pathways. But A Course in Miracles, and I believe this book as well, is a more direct way of going. It's more to the point and to the truth. Okay, so I think we're pretty much finished for this lesson, unless you have anything you want to add, friend.
Um, no, I think it's yeah, it's basically tying it back to the title of the lesson, growth, real and unreal. So he's talking about that growth of like a plant, right? And
Yes.
growing in the darkness.
Hmm.
He's called kind of friendly darkness. So
Yeah.
we just have to be humble and allowing ourselves to build a strong foundation, and knowing that when we rise up through the soil and whatever we are as a seed, we're becoming a plant or a tree or whatever, and then we're going to be essentially um, flourishing in this like real world, right?
Yes. And we do need to change our minds and our thoughts before we start to embark on our second part of our journey, which he spoke about in previous lessons, if you'll recall, friend,
Mm.
about how we would still be in the same condition that we were in when we die and leave our bodies. We're still in the same emotional, mental condition. So we don't die and suddenly become angels and, you know, start blowing the trumpets for God. We're still, wherever we are when we die, is where we're going to be.
Mm.
And later on in the book, he says, we would do well to study while we're here because it's a fertile ground for learning. So, but I think we'll get into that further along. So, what a wonderful discussion, friend. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. So it's fertile soil. Each
Fertile
lesson.
soil.
All right, thanks.
And thank you, friends online, for listening. And we hope to see you next week for another interesting chapter called Matter and its Relation to Spirit. That sounds really interesting. Okay, bye for now.
All right, bye-bye.